Sarah Bennett hit the floor before she ever reached the graduation stage. One moment she was walking toward her master's degree with shaky pride. The next she was staring up at blurry ceiling lights as voices swirled above her like distant echoes. The world felt soft at the edges, her heart beat too loud in her ears. She heard, faintly, someone shout for help. Hours later, she woke in the hospital still wearing her gown, her hair damp against the pillow, a dull ache pressing behind her eyes. When she reached for her phone, it lit up with a new tag from her younger sister, Lily, a backyard photo of the entire family smiling around a grill. The caption read, "Family Day without the drama." Sarah blinked slowly, unable to react. No one had called. No one had shown up. She sat in that cold hospital room, for taped to her arm, realizing that collapsing wasn't the worst part of the day. The truth was sinking in. Her family's absence was louder than the fall itself, and for the first time in her life, the silence felt like a verdict. Sarah had grown up in a small Pennsylvania neighborhood where porches glowed warm at night and families looked perfect from the outside. But inside her own home, everything leaned toward Lily, delicate, sensitive, fragile. While Sarah was labeled the strong one, the reliable one, the girl who didn't need softness. Her mother praised Lily for simply breathing, while her father always said, "Sarah, you're the dependable one. We can count on you." It sounded like love, but it felt like a lifelong assignment she never applied for. She tied Lily's hair for school, took the blame when Lily cried, and hosted quiet birthdays while Lily's were productions. Her childhood became a lesson in silence and survival. Please tell us where you are watching from today. Hit the like button, and subscribe to this channel for more. When Sarah left for college in Boston, she finally felt air that didn't weigh on her shoulders. She built her own life through 2 jobs, late-night studying, and professors who believed in her. Yet the calls from home followed like shadows. "We're behind on the electric bill. Lily's card is maxed. Your sister needs help again." Every request ended in the same expectation. Sarah would fix it. She always did. She transferred money she didn't have, skipped meals, and picked up extra shifts because guilt had been stitched into her since childhood. But Boston also gave her people who noticed. Her coworker Jenny pushed soup into her hands and said, "Stop apologizing for being tired." Her shift buddy Tom frowned when she swayed and told her to sit down. And when Dr. Lane told her gently, "You carry too much," Sarah almost cried because it was the first time someone saw the truth she had never spoken aloud. The months before graduation squeezed Sarah tighter than she realized. Between her full-time hospital job, weekend cafe shifts, and final coursework, she barely slept. She woke before sunrise, returned home after midnight, and lived on caffeine and willpower. Her body tried to warn her, shaky hands, spinning rooms, pounding headaches, but she ignored it. Meanwhile, the requests from home only increased. One night at work, Sarah checked her phone and saw a notification. Lily had tagged her again. This time, it was another family photo around the grill. They were laughing, plates piled high, sunlight glowing on everyone. The caption repeated, "Family Day without the drama." Sarah stared at it until her throat tightened. She whispered, "So they didn't even think of me." She turned off her phone and pressed her palm into the table, feeling something inside her shift. It wasn't anger yet. It was a quiet ache, a knowing that the distance she always felt wasn't imagined. On the day of graduation, Boston shimmered with excitement. Families holding balloons, students posing for photos, music rolling across the lawn. Sarah adjusted her cap even though her hands trembled. She scanned the bleachers, searching for her parents. Her stomach tightened. Empty seats, but none saved for her. Then a text buzzed. "Traffic is bad. Go ahead. We'll catch up." She forced a smile even though her vision blurred. When her name echoed through the speakers, she stood, legs wobbling. She took one step, then another, until the world tilted sharply. Sound rushed away like a tide. She hit the ground hard, gasps rising around her. Someone shouted for help. When she finally woke, Dr. Whitman told her gently, "Severe exhaustion. Stress. Heart strain. You're lucky you didn't collapse alone." Her voice cracked when she whispered, "Did my parents come?" His hesitation was answer enough. 2 days later, Sarah was back in her quiet apartment, still weak, still dizzy, moving like someone underwater. Evening light slipped across the wall as she set her discharge papers on the table. Then her phone buzzed once, twice, then non-stop. When she finally looked, her heart froze. 7 to 5 missed calls. Mom, Dad,
Home. Lily. Over and over. At first she felt panic.
Then something colder settled inside. She scrolled through the messages, her fingers trembling. Why aren't you answering? This is serious. Pick up now. Your sister is in trouble.
Of course it was about Lily.
But when she scrolled further, the earlier messages revealed the truth. A bank notice, blurry screenshots, a loan.
A large loan. And her name was on it. Her signature was on it.
Except it wasn't hers, a copied, outdated version from years ago. They had forged her name. Sarah felt her breath leave her body in a slow, steady stream.
It didn't feel like panic.
It felt like clarity sharpening to a point. Instead of calling her parents back, Sarah texted one person. Can you come over? Jenny arrived 20 minutes later with soup and worry on her face.
Tell me what happened, she said gently. Sarah handed her the phone.
Jenny read every message, her jaw tightening. Sarah, this is fraud. They used your signature. This is illegal.
Sarah swallowed hard.
Hearing someone else say it made it real. They had used her identity, her name, her life without permission. Jenny sat beside her, gripping her shoulder.
You're not going through this alone.
We're fixing this. She helped Sarah pull up documents, compare dates, and gather screenshots.
For the first time in her life, Sarah didn't make excuses for her family.
She didn't say, they didn't mean it.
She didn't soften the edges. She allowed the truth to stand. They used me, she whispered. They always have, Jenny replied.
That night, they contacted a financial attorney. When he looked at the forged signature, he sighed heavily and said, You owe nothing.
What they did is a crime.
The attorney walked Sarah through every step, legal protections, next actions, what to document, what to avoid. His words were calm but firm. If they pressure you again, tell them you know about the forgery.
You will not sign.
If needed, legal action is your right. Sarah felt something shift inside her, a mixture of fear and freedom. After the call ended, she sat quietly, tears slipping down her cheek.
Jenny squeezed her hand.
You're allowed to protect yourself, she whispered.
Morning came too quickly.
When Sarah's phone rang again, she stared at her parents' number.
Jenny nodded.
Put it on speaker.
Sarah answered. Her mother's voice erupted immediately. Sarah, finally. Do you know how stressed we've been?
Why haven't you answered? Sarah replied, voice steady. I was in the hospital.
Silence.
Then her mother cleared her throat and said, Well, yes, but Lily is in a crisis right now. We need you to focus. The shift was instant. And familiar. They only cared because they needed something. Her father's voice cut in, tense and commanding. You need to call the bank today. They won't speak to us without you. Your sister's future depends on this.
Sarah didn't tremble this time.
Dad, you used my signature without permission.
A thick silence followed.
Her mother spoke sharply. We only did it because you handle things better than Lily. Stop being dramatic.
The same word Lily used online. Dramatic.
Sarah swallowed but kept her voice level. I'm not signing anything. Her father snapped. Excuse me.
I said I'm not signing. You have to, her mother cried. We could lose everything. Sarah exhaled softly.
I spent my whole life thinking about the family. Her father growled. If you don't help us, we're finished.
Jenny whispered, Say it.
Sarah breathed in. I spoke to an attorney.
What you did is illegal.
If you keep contacting me about this loan, I will take legal action.
Her parents gasped. Her mother's voice broke. We need you. Please.
But this time, Sarah finally saw the truth. They needed her resources, not her.
Sarah ended the call with one firm click. The red button glowed for a moment before the screen went dark. Jenny exhaled shakily.
You did it. Sarah's hands trembled, not from fear, but from release. That afternoon, she spent hours removing herself from every shared bill, account, and automatic payment her parents had quietly attached her to. She changed passwords, closed old links, and requested official records.
Each action felt like cutting a chain.
By evening, her apartment felt lighter, like air could finally flow through it. Sarah stood by her window and watched the city turn gold under the sunset. For the first time in her life, she whispered, I'm not their answer anymore. Boston hummed outside, people walking, cars passing, life continuing. And she felt herself entering that life, not as a daughter held hostage by guilt, but as a woman reclaiming her story one step at a time.
She didn't know yet how far her healing would go. But she knew this, she was finally free enough to find out.
The days that followed felt strangely quiet. Sarah kept expecting her phone to explode with more demands, but after her final words, her parents went silent. She spent her mornings resting, sitting near the window while sunlight warmed her blanket-covered legs. Her body, exhausted after years of pushing, slowly began to trust her again. She met with the financial attorney once more to finalize documents protecting her identity. "You've taken the right steps," he said firmly. "Now the consequences belong to the people who created the problem." Sarah nodded, absorbing the truth. When she walked home afterward, she noticed she could breathe deeper than she had in years. That evening, she made tea, wrapped herself in a soft sweater, and let herself rest without guilt for the first time. Jenny texted her, "Proud of you. Dinner soon?" Sarah smiled. She wasn't used to being cared for, but she let herself lean into it. Healing didn't feel dramatic or fast. It felt like small breaths, deeper sleep, and the absence of fear each time her phone buzzed. It felt like stepping into a life where she wasn't carrying everyone else on her back. News from home traveled through neighbors who still followed her mother on social media. One evening, Sarah received a message from Mrs. Harris, the elderly neighbor who used to sneak her cookies as a child. "Hope you're well, dear. Things at your parents' place look stressful. The bank people were there again today." Sarah stared at the message, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and relief. For once, she wasn't being pulled back into their mess. She wasn't the emergency contact for chaos she didn't create. A few days later, she heard that Lily had broken down crying outside their house after receiving a legal notice. Her parents had tried to blame Sarah online, posting vague statuses about ungrateful children. But most people knew the truth. Even those who didn't matter. Sarah didn't flinch anymore. She wasn't responsible for other people's choices. She focused on rebuilding her life in Boston. She attended therapy regularly, learned grounding techniques, and slowly found joy in small things: warm bread from the cafe, laughter with coworkers, quiet mornings where nothing hurt. Her life was no longer shaped by crisis. It was shaped by choice. Over time, Sarah's body began to recover from what the doctor called years of unattended burnout. Her sleep deepened. Her appetite returned. Her headaches faded. She started taking slow evening walks through her neighborhood, admiring blooming trees and window lights that felt like small pieces of peace. At work, her new clinical supervisor noticed her calm professionalism and told her, "You're a natural leader," without losing yourself. Sarah smiled in a way she hadn't in years. She also found herself confiding more in Jenny. One night over dinner, Jenny said, "You know, you deserve people who show up." Sarah paused, then whispered, "I think I'm learning that." The absence of her family no longer felt like a wound, it felt like space to breathe. Without constant emergencies draining her, she discovered hobbies she forgot she loved: sketching, reading, cooking simple meals. Life didn't feel like a race anymore. It felt like gentle steps forward. And with each step, the old version of her, the girl who fixed everything, faded just a little more. But healing wasn't only about peace. It also brought clarity. One morning, Sarah received an official letter from the bank stating she was removed from all responsibility for the forged loan. The attorney had handled everything. "You are fully protected," the letter read. She sat on her couch, holding the paper in both hands, letting the weightless relief settle over her. She expected guilt, anger, or grief. Instead, she felt a quiet acceptance. That afternoon, she received one last message from her mother: "We're disappointed in you." Sarah stared at it for a moment. Then she did something she never thought she could. She deleted it without replying. No shaking hands. No heartache. No self-blame. Just a boundary held firmly. She realized then that freedom wasn't loud. It was silent, steady, and deeply personal. It was choosing not to return to a fire she didn't start. And for the first time, Sarah allowed herself to trust her own strength in a way that didn't require her to suffer. Spring arrived in Boston with soft pink blossoms that lined her street like a promise of new beginnings. Sarah moved into a small studio apartment with tall windows and morning light that spilled across her floor. She decorated it slowly: second-hand shelves, a thrift rug, a plant Jenny insisted she couldn't possibly kill. It didn't matter that the place was small. It was hers. One evening, she baked a simple dinner and ate by the window, watching the city quiet under a pale orange sky.
She caught herself smiling.
Later that week, she received a message from Tom, her former coworker. Haven't seen you at the old shift. You doing okay?
For once, Sarah didn't hide. I'm doing better than okay, she replied. He wrote back, good. You deserve that.
She realized she had built a circle of people who cared, not out of obligation, but out of choice. And that made her life feel fuller than any family expectation ever had. Her therapist helped her name things she had never understood before: emotional labor, parentification, survival guilt. You were never meant to carry your family, the therapist said gently. You were meant to grow.
The words stayed with her.
Sarah began practicing boundaries in small ways, saying no when she needed rest, stepping away from draining conversations, allowing herself to take days off without apology. With every boundary she held, she felt a part of herself strengthen. Her body, once trembling with exhaustion, now felt steady. Her mind, once clouded by obligation, felt clear. She even joined a weekend ceramics class where she met people who laughed easily and asked nothing from her but presence. For the first time in her life, she felt fully human, not a helper, not a fixer, not a shadow behind Lily. Just Sarah. And that was enough. One afternoon, while walking home, Sarah passed a park filled with families taking spring photos. Children ran in circles, parents called their names, and the air hummed with weekend joy. She paused, watching them, waiting for the familiar sadness to rise. But it didn't. Instead, she felt thankful that she could now build connections by choice rather than blood. Later that day, Jenny surprised her with a small potted plant shaped like a heart. My friend said you're doing better, Jenny teased. Thought you needed something alive that won't judge you. They laughed. It felt good. That evening, Sarah journaled for the first time in months. She wrote about who she had been, who she was becoming, and who she hoped to be. She wrote, I'm learning that love isn't supposed to feel like debt. When she closed the notebook, she felt lighter, as though something long buried had finally been acknowledged. Summer warmed the city, and Sarah took on a new role at the hospital. One with regular hours, healthy boundaries, and supportive coworkers. Her supervisor, Mrs. Carter, pulled her aside one day and said, Your calmness helps people feel safe. Don't lose that. Sarah nodded, grateful. Her life no longer revolved around emergencies. She met new friends during her shifts, joined small lunch groups, and slowly built a community of people who genuinely valued her. She also started saving money for the first time in years. Her account was small, but it was hers, untouched, unrequested, unburdened. The quiet independence felt like sunlight after a long winter. When Sarah thought about her parents now, she felt distance rather than pain. She understood that family could be chosen. And she had chosen peace. She had chosen growth. She had chosen herself. That realization became a soft anchor in her life. One evening, as Sarah sat by her window watching the city lights twinkle like distant stars, she reflected on everything she had survived: childhood neglect, emotional pressure, financial exploitation, and the collapse that had nearly stopped her heart. Yet she was still here. Stronger, clearer, softer with herself. She brewed a cup of tea and let the steam warm her face. She no longer waited for apologies she knew would never come. She no longer needed them. Her life had expanded beyond the narrow walls of her family's expectations. She had rebuilt herself with steady hands and quiet courage. Jenny called her that night and said, We're having a small dinner this weekend. Come. Your family. Sarah smiled, her chest warming. I'll be there, she said. And she meant it. Not out of obligation, but because she was finally choosing the people who chose her. The final piece of her healing came quietly. One morning, Sarah stood in her kitchen as sunlight filled the room, warm and bright. She realized she no longer woke with dread, no longer feared her phone, no longer felt the weight of other people's lives pulling her under. She touched her chest lightly and whispered, I'm free. The words weren't dramatic, they were true. Her journey had been painful, but it had led her to a life she could finally call her own. She finished her tea, stepped outside, and walked down her street with a calm confidence she'd never experienced before. The world felt open. Possible. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't walking toward a crisis. She was walking toward a future she created herself. As she crossed the street, a soft breeze lifted her hair, and she smiled. Sarah Bennett had rebuilt her life from the ground up. And she wasn't done yet. Her story didn't end with collapse. It ended with freedom, strength, and a new beginning she chose with her whole heart.